Well, I think we'll start very simply. Kindly tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, my name's Brivati. I'm the academic director of Beyond Borders. So what I do is try and organise and design the projects that Beyond Borders run in terms of small nation dialogue and capacity building. For example, in places like Oman, we're running a parliamentary capacity building programme with the Attorney General's office and with the new Omani Parliament. And here I've been chairing a few of the talks, and I've brought over a group of fellows who did a programme with the John Smith Trust from Ukraine, and they've been talking about the Maidan Revolution.
Tell me about some of the people who you've brought and the stories that they've revealed here in Traquair.
Well, what we've done, the John Smith programme has been running in Ukraine for about 15 years, and Elizabeth Smith, who's also a trustee of Beyond Borders, was very, very close to Russia, Ukraine, the former Soviet Union for a long time. And so each year we bring over a group of young leaders. And because of what's going on in Ukraine for this festival, we've brought over four extremely interesting characters. One of them, Andrei Shevchenko, is one of the leading MPs, backbench MP, chairman of the Human Rights Committee. And he was in the Maidan from the very beginning, the demonstrations that occupied the square in the centre of Kiev. He was one of those voices of both pro-revolution but also moderation. He was a very important anti-violence voice. Ostap is a Ukrainian nationalist who, because of his fantastic English, was picked by the self-defense units, who were the more militia-like group of the Maidan, as the international spokesman. So from being an ordinary demonstrator, he then became the main conduit to the international press throughout the revolution, and then went into government in the National Security Council, and was part of planning and helping with the anti-terrorism operations. Ina was running a civil society organisation in education policy when she was a fellow in 2012. As a result of the revolution, she became Minister of Higher Education in the new government and is now trying to reform the university sector. And Hannah works for the International Institute of Strategic Studies in Odessa and NATO, and has been writing a series of pieces analysing the geopolitics of Ukraine. We also had a beamed-in interview with Marina, who is in Donetsk right now, working with the 3 million people in the Donbass region who are being affected by the conflict. And she's doing things like literally appealing for body bags to take care of corpses of people who are being killed, of doing humanitarian assistance for people who are as always in these situations, particularly in urban areas, who are the innocent victims of this clash between the Ukrainian security forces and the separatists. And they each told stories of the revolution, their own experiences, particularly of the 20th, the day when 100 Ukrainians were shot and dead during the demonstrations, and they were all present for those events.
Thank you. I mean, why did you bring them here? Why here to the borders? What's important about it?
Well, this festival and Beyond Borders are about dialogue, and Beyond Borders work in terms of small nation dialogue and mediation, and Scotland's role globally as a small country doing a peaceful transition, a change in constitutional arrangements over the last 20 years, and we'll see what happens in the referendum. But whatever happens there, that is an incredible model for how you manage change peacefully without confrontation. So the more groups that we can bring, and we bring groups every year from countries where there are conflicts. We've brought Armenians and Azerbaijanis, we've brought Russians and Georgians to Scotland to see how you can manage quite substantial changes in constitutional and political arrangements with no direct physical conflict. A certain amount of verbal abuse, certainly, but no physical conflict. And I think that the process going right back to the Constitutional Convention, which set up the Scottish Parliament, through to this referendum, is a model that the whole world could learn from effectively. And Beyond Borders is about bringing people to learn from that experience.
And is it particularly important to bring them to a peaceful place, a sort of a neutral place, like the Scottish borders? Does that help them?
The impact it has on people when they come here, in terms of the ability of enemies to have conversations, is extraordinary. Now, in development work, there's a huge emphasis on going into countries and running projects in countries, and that's absolutely right. But sometimes, if you can take key people out of their context, put them in somewhere as beautiful, as peaceful as here, somewhere as historic and interesting as here, they can begin to have conversations that they simply couldn't have at home. And countless times I've been told, not only by our fellows from the former Soviet space, but our fellows also from the Middle East, that they could say things, and they find themselves saying things in this context that they would never say at home. And the physical beauty of a place like this adds to the transformatory experience of people coming here. So yes, it's one of the best places in the world where you can do this kind of work.
What do you think what can you see being achieved by bringing these people here, the Ukrainians? What can you see happening?
For the Ukrainians, we are putting, in that little group, we're putting together people from opposition and government and from the East. So one of the big problems in Ukraine, although lots has been achieved, one of the big problems is that Kiev and the West doesn't speak properly or enough to Donetsk and the East. Now, what we can do is provide platforms and spaces where they can talk to each other. And then we can take that work and we can build on it in Ukraine itself. And that's what we hope Beyond Borders is going to do in the near future. So we lay the foundations here. We get them out of their working lives and give them a little bit of time to stop and think. We design projects with them, and then we hope we can then run those projects in Ukraine. And our long-term ambition is to do a Beyond Borders style festival in Ukraine itself and transfer the learning and the experience that we have in running this program so that they can run similar programs in Ukraine with accompanying dialogue and mediation. And art and culture is a tremendous way of having conversations about change in a neutral medium. And we want to export some of that.